Fire Captain Engineering, situation critical.
All available personnel on the double. Spock with me.
Remember when the future of television was held together by duct tape and network executives who had no idea what they were looking at? From 1966 to 1969, Star Trek aired on NBC, a scrappy science fiction series about the crew of the USS Enterprise exploring strange new worlds while quietly sneaking philosophy past the censors. Created by Gene Roddenberry, the show starred William Shatner as Captain Kirk, Leonard Nimoy as Spock, and DeForest Kelley as Dr. McCoy. At the time, sci-fi on television was considered risky, even childish, something that wouldn't attract serious audiences. But Star Trek quietly did something different. It mixed adventure with deep ideas about humanity, technology, and the future. The sets were simple, the effects were limited, and the budget was tight, yet the imagination behind it was massive. Today, we're counting down 15 weird facts about Star Trek you didn't know. 15. Gene Roddenberry's final mission. Gene Roddenberry spent his life imagining space travel, and after his death, part of him actually made that journey. His ashes were first sent into orbit aboard a space shuttle mission, circling Earth like a silent tribute. Later, they were launched again as part of a commercial space burial, where they remained in orbit for years before burning up in the atmosphere. Decades later, another mission carried his remains even further, into deep space, alongside other Star Trek legends. In a way, the man who created a universe about exploring the stars eventually became part of that universe himself. 14. The woman who saved Star Trek. Before Star Trek ever reached audiences, it almost ended in a boardroom. The first pilot was considered too confusing and intellectual for mainstream television. Executives didn't understand it, and more importantly, they didn't believe it would make money. Then Lucille Ball stepped in and made a bold decision. She approved funding for a second pilot, even though her own team warned it could fail. At that moment, she wasn't just a comedian. She was taking a serious business risk. And without that one decision, Star Trek would have disappeared before it even began. 13. The first officer who was removed. In the original pilot, Majel Barrett played a character known as Number One. She was calm, intelligent, and highly capable, a natural leader. But NBC executives felt audiences wouldn't accept a woman giving orders on screen at that time. So the character was removed from the series going forward. However, her personality didn't disappear. It evolved. Roddenberry took her defining traits and transferred them into Spock, shaping one of the most iconic characters in television history. And ironically, those same qualities that were rejected later became the heart of the show. 12. The kiss that shocked television. In 1968, William Shatner and Nichelle Nichols performed one of the first interracial kisses ever shown on American TV. At the time, this was considered extremely controversial. Network executives feared backlash, especially from certain regions of the country. They tried to film alternate versions without the kiss. But according to Nichols, the actors intentionally ruined those takes, forcing the original version to be used. When the episode aired, something unexpected happened. Instead of outrage, the show received supportive letters, proving that audiences were ready for change long before networks realized it. 11. The Vulcan salute's origin. Leonard Nimoy didn't just play Spock. He helped define him. The famous Vulcan salute came from a childhood memory of a religious ceremony. During a sacred blessing, Nimoy saw a priest holding their hands in a unique shape. That image stayed with him for years. So when the show needed a greeting for Vulcans, he suggested using that gesture. What started as a personal memory became a global symbol. Today, millions of fans use it without even knowing its deep cultural roots. 10. Scotty was a real war hero. Before stepping onto the Enterprise, James Doohan had already lived through real battlefield drama. He fought during World War II and landed on D-Day, one of the most intense military operations in history. During combat, he was hit multiple times, including a shot that would have been fatal if not for a cigarette case in his pocket. He lost a finger but survived, and later built a career in acting. On Star Trek, he carefully hid his injury, ensuring that audiences focused only on the character, not the actor's past scars. 9. Fans saved the show. When NBC planned to cancel Star Trek, something unusual happened. Fans refused to accept it. Led by B. Joe Trimble, they organized a massive letter-writing campaign. Thousands of letters flooded NBC, overwhelming the network in a way they had never experienced before. It became impossible to ignore. As a result, Star Trek was renewed for another season. This moment is often seen as the birth of modern fan culture, where audiences proved they could influence the fate of the show. 8. Tribbles took over production. The episode The Trouble with Tribbles introduced small, furry creatures that multiplied rapidly. On screen, it looked like controlled chaos. But behind the scenes, it became actual chaos. Crew members started hiding Tribbles in random places. Costumes, equipment, even each other's belongings. The joke kept spreading, just like the creatures themselves. Even after filming ended, Tribbles kept appearing unexpectedly. What started as a prop turned into a running legend on set. 7. The theme song trick. The iconic Star Trek theme was composed by Alexander Courage, but Gene Roddenberry saw an opportunity behind the scenes. He added lyrics to the theme, even though they were never used. This allowed him to legally claim part of the royalties. Every time the show aired, he earned a share of the music revenue. Over time, as the show grew globally, that decision turned into a massive financial gain, all from lyrics that were never heard. 6. Spock almost looked completely different. Spock's appearance almost went in a very different direction. Originally, he was supposed to have red skin to look more alien, but on black and white televisions, that color appeared distorted and strange. The production team had to rethink everything. Eventually, they settled on a subtle greenish tone that worked across all screens. Even then, editing teams sometimes corrected his color by mistake, thinking something was wrong. It took time before Spock's look became consistent and iconic. 5. Star Trek inspired the mobile phone. Martin Cooper helped create the first handheld mobile phone. He later admitted that Star Trek played a role in shaping his vision. The communicator device showed a world where instant communication was possible anywhere. That idea stayed with him. Years later, when flip phones were introduced, their design clearly resembled the communicator. It's one of the clearest examples of science fiction turning into real-world technology. 4. The Kirk Girdle myth. One of the strangest rumors about Star Trek involves William Shatner. The claim was that he wore a girdle under his uniform to maintain his appearance. Shatner has denied this multiple times over the years. The rumor likely started because viewers noticed small physical changes between seasons. But instead of accepting reality, the story evolved into a long-lasting myth. Even today, it still pops up in discussions, showing how easily fan theories can turn into facts. 3. Kirk's future birthplace. The town of Riverside, Iowa made an unusual decision. They officially declared themselves the future birthplace of Captain Kirk. Surprisingly, Gene Roddenberry supported the idea. Over time, the town fully embraced it. They host events, celebrations, and even mark locations connected to the character. It's a rare example of fiction influencing real-world identity, where a town built part of its culture around a future that hasn't happened yet. 2. Beam me up, Scotty was never said. Beam me up, Scotty is one of the most famous lines in pop culture. But here's the twist. It was never actually said that way in the original series. Characters use similar phrases, but never that exact wording. Over time, audiences simplified and repeated it until it became the official version. It's a perfect example of how memory and media can reshape reality. 1. Martin Luther King Jr. saved Uhura. Nichelle Nichols once planned to leave Star Trek to pursue other opportunities. Then she met Martin Luther King Jr. He told her that her role as Uhura was more than just acting. It represented progress and hope. For the first time, audiences were seeing a black woman portrayed as intelligent, respected, and equal. That conversation changed everything. Nichols stayed on the show, and her presence became one of the most important cultural impacts of Star Trek. 15 facts. One legendary show. Which one surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, live long and prosper. Vulcan salute.